Okay, hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you the final capstone, the React and Redux one. It's a catalog of recipes, and I've chosen to show and display cocktails. Okay, so drinks. And this is the deployed version. I deployed on Netfly. So, and I will show you also some code. But first, I want to apologize for the delay, but my girlfriend, she broke her feet this week, and we spent a little bit of time in hospital and visiting doctors. So that's why I didn't match the deadline just for that. But in every case, so this React and Redux project is a catalog of cocktails in this case. And as you can see here, we will start with a default page because I'm using the cocktailDB API, and this API is a little bit strange because it doesn't give you an endpoint to get a full list of cocktails. You have just a couple of endpoints. So I prefer to use these techniques. So we have this default view where we can search. Okay, we start with the letter N, but we can see other cocktail by just typing every time a different letter. So it will search for first letter. And but sometimes can happen that a cocktail doesn't start with a specific letter, like the letter U, for example, or I don't know, the letter X, for example. Also, I think the 8 doesn't have any cocktails. Okay, you can delete and you will get another one. Okay, so we also can filter by alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and the state will persist between pages. Okay, so as you can see here, this one is alcoholic. Okay, we also have a single page with details, ingredients, and instruction for every cocktail, for every drink, and a simple mock, a fake about page, just to demonstrate the routing. Okay, because we have a home route that will go just to the home page, and every route is dynamically made using React Router DOM. This one also. Okay, now let's go to the code itself. So for this project, I use create React app to bootstrap the project. As you can see here, I have different folder, one for the test that are running and passing. Let's select A so we can get an output. Everything is passing correctly. We have a components folder where we have all different components. So we have the cocktail list that is the main page, the cocktail list that is for the details page, the about for the about page, the nav that is this component that contains these other two components, the filter one, so the alcoholic checkbox, and the input one, so the text field for the single letter search feature. We have the styles folder where I'm using Sass, and I'm compiling it to simple CSS, and I'm just linking it to every file that's needed. So we have also the Redux folder where I have a different folder with every folder types, action, and reducer one. So as you can see, because so let's start from the beginning. With the index, so this one is the entry point of our application, and here we can see that I'm using this provider. This provider component is coming from Redux. Okay, and the store is also a Redux feature. we are enclosing the app component into this provider so we can have access to the state management of our app for all the nested components inside app. Okay, the app instead contains the routing system. Okay, as you can see here, the browser router contains all the nested components. Nav is outside of it because we don't want to take care of which route, because Nav doesn't have any route. And we have this switch that is used to display a single component every time a path match the route. We are using the exact keyword because we just want the slash to be exact for the cocktail list. And we have this one with parameter ID when we want to go to the cocktail, to the specific cocktail. And the final one, the about, just for the about component. I just want to let's go to the components further first. So we have the nav. Let me minimize this one. We don't need it. So very simple component, just a navbar with some link that always are coming from the browser router. This is why we can use it. We can use them. And we have this filter with a props past exchange filter. We will see what is it later, and an input component, and other two links, one for the home and one for the about. As in every component, we are checking the type of the prop that is passed to the component. In this case, we want and we know that the change filter is a function, and we are checking for that. That this map dispatch to props is another feature that I'm going to discuss later when we are going to talk about Redux data flow. The input is always a very simple component, just a form with a label to search for the first letter. Okay, and we have this function that will call the fetch query. I want to thank my teammate for this implementation because it was very fun to work with my teammates for just like half an hour trying to figure out how to code this feature, but it was very interesting. And this is one of the things that I really liked about microverse. So find people that really cares and about your success, but just not only about software development. We talk about a lot of things about our private life and what's going on in your own country. So this one was one of the things that I really liked. And so, for example, router input is another feature because we want the input component to not be shown on some route. Okay, for example, when we are in the single component, in the single cocktail details page, we don't want the filter to show up. Okay, even on the about page, we don't need them. We just want them to appear on the cocktail list page. Okay, where always we can search for different cocktail. Okay, the filter instead is the alcoholic checkbox. Okay, we're using the reference to get access to this particular input, and then we are just checking with an on-change event the current state of this input. Based on that, we will check or not we will check for the alcoholic properties inside the object that we are getting from the API calls. And this one is what we were talking about before, because we want these component to be shown just on the cocktail list component. This one is the cocktail list component. It is pretty straightforward because we just want to filter based on that filter, the alcoholic filter. We just want to filter the cocktails that we are getting from the API calls. Okay, so if this property of that object is alcoholic, okay, we will render this selection of items. Otherwise, we will just display the whole object. we are using this use effect to query the API with a particular query that we are passing down as props. Okay, and then we have, as you can see here, we have a div that contains the image, the name, and I'm just leaving this index to better understand if there is some difference between the different cocktail when we are just filtering them. Okay. After that, this is for example, this is a conditional rendering because we want to display these all component only if the filtered cocktails is working, is there. Okay, so we want to be there will always be something inside. Okay, but if there is no something, like for the letter U or the letter X, for example, we just want to return an error. In this case, there is no cocktail starting with this letter. This is just a conditional rendering. We are not handling the error for the API calls in a we are handling in a different way with an error message. This is another story. But as always, we are checking for all the props, so we know that the cocktail should be an object. The fetch cocktails is a function. The filter is just a Boolean, true or false, and the query, so the letter that we are typing into the input field, is just a string. Okay, and we want also default props for this, that is just an empty string. Okay, the cocktail is another type of component. Okay, here we are using massively this conditional rendering, especially for this for the ingredient, because sometimes can happen that not all the cocktail have the same number of ingredients, for example. No, in this case, I'm just showcasing the first 5 ingredients and the related measure. Okay, so if we have the ingredient and we have the measure, we will display this. Otherwise, we will just display nothing. Okay, the same goes for the instructions. And this is the whole component where we are displaying, this is the single component. So we are displaying the name, the image on the side, we are displaying the category, just like a little bit of prose. Okay, so is an other unknown category in this case. Okay, but this one is an ordinary string category, and this is served in an old-fashioned class because we are also getting the class. So the about page, as I told you, is just a dump page, just to demonstrate the use of React router DOM. Okay, for example, here in Cocktail, you can see that if the location path match the about, we just want to return the about. Okay, but in every case, let's start talking about the Redux data flow. Okay, because Redux is a state management library, okay, where we are using it to have access to the state of our application in all of our components without the need to lifting up the state or passing down the state as props to other components down the line. Okay, so we have 3 different actors in this story. We have actions, we have reducers, and we have store. Okay, so what happened? For example, here I will start with just the cocktail list. Okay, so this is what the home page will get. Okay, so the cocktail types is just, we are using these files just to get some convention. We don't want to make typo, or when you type, you don't want mistakes. That's why we are just converting this string that are the types of our action into constants that we are just exporting. Okay. This one, in fact, will just export the different constant, and for every type, it will make a different, it is a different action. Okay. In this case, for example, in these 2 cases, we are not just passing the type, we are also passing another key that is the payload, that is what we are going to get. Okay, this one is the actual action that is going to make all the work for us, because we are using, we are making an API call. Okay, we are making a request to this endpoint, as you can see here, with a particular query. So in this case, we are carrying two different parameters, one for the query and one for the dispatch. If these request, after we are dispatching this fetch cocktail request, if this call go successfully, we will get a response object. We are extracting the data from this response, and we are passing the drinks key to our other action, the dispatch, fetch cocktail success. Okay, if everything goes wrong, we will dispatch another action that is fetch cocktail's failure with an error message. Okay. The reducer is what is taking in the state of the application and the action. In this case, when we are dispatching the first action, so let me show you better. When we are passing this action, okay, so we are dispatching this dispatch, we are going to call this type of action. This type of action will return the whole state, a copy of the whole state, but with a loading flag of true, because we are loading something from an external resources. It can be API calls, it can be input-output from the file system. It's always an async. So that's why we are using this flag, but this one is optional. If in this case, when this request is successful, so it's completed, this promise is completed, we are dispatching this other action, the fetch cocktail success, and we are passing the loading flag to false because we are not loading anymore. The error key is empty because we are not getting any error, but the cocktail is the actual payload, so what we are getting, okay? And as default, we are just returning the state. The other, for the others, so for the cocktail, the filter, and the input, this process is almost the same. I want to focus more on the root reducer, where we are just combining all these reducer into just one that, as convention, we call root reducer. And finally, the store. So the store is what is encapsulating all the state of our application. In this case, because we need to make API calls, so asynchronous action, asynchronous function, we need also to use this func as middleware, okay? So to create this store, we are passing all the state composed in this big object called root reducer to, and as a second parameters, we have to compose these with DevTools, because I'm using also Redux DevTools, and applying the middleware func. There are other middleware like Logger to get information about your state into your console. So, as you can see here, when I click here, or when I, oops, no, there is no code, okay. For example, when I click this checkbox, as you can see, the page is blazing fast. This is because React uses something called virtual DOM. It makes another copy of the DOM, okay, internally, and then compare the two with the DOM and the virtual DOM. If something is changed in the virtual DOM, it will just update the part. In this case, for example, this one will be just moved outside of the document. Okay, will be deleted, will be removed from the document. This is why it's so fast. Okay, instead with the DOM manipulation is pretty slow, because you have to go to the DOM and then modify it, all of it. instead, the React Virtual DOM just remove, change, edit just a single part of our virtual DOM, in fact, and then update the DOM accordingly to this change. Something else? No, but React, for example, yes, Redux, yes, it can be pretty useful if you have a large application where you have to, manage the state and get the state displayed or modified, edited in different far away part of your application. But for application of this size, where the state is very near to each other component, or you don't have so much component, maybe Redux is not the best choice. Okay, and today, that is 2021, we have other alternatives like the context API or other hooks that we can use to manage the state of our application. So yes, Redux can be is a good but complicated library for state management, but yes, it can be useful, especially, I told you, if you have a big, large application where you have to manage the state all over the place and you don't want just to get the state on top of your application, like in the app component as here. No, you don't want that. You don't want the provider to be here, okay? And then you have to pass all the state down to every other component. That's why we use Redux for this trick. So this is my presentation. So thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy. See you.